All right, so this one is, why did God give David multiple wives as a way of blessing him? And there's actually a Bible reference here to 2 Samuel 12, 7 through 8. What's interesting in this particular passage here, God actually says to David, he says, you have struck down Uriah the Hittite with the sword, and you've taken his wife to be your wife. God actually says that he didn't give David this woman to be his wife. David actually stole this woman to be his wife. He actually murdered someone in that. So there are other occasions in which you might say that David had multiplied his wives, but there seems to be something on behalf of God's part that actually for future generations was saying, don't multiply wives for yourselves. Polygamy was, without question, something that was done and in many cases proliferated throughout the Old Testament. There's all sorts of historical reasons why some have stated that A, not only was this normal, B, it sounds shocking to our modern day sensibilities, but in a lot of ways it was actually, they were acts of grace, because women in that ancient culture were vulnerable. And so for a woman to not have a father or a brother or a husband to protect her, oftentimes left her being vulnerable. I don't know if that exactly answers the question, but there does seem to be a movement away from polygamy as a practice. And by the time you get to the New Testament, you see Paul as he gives forth prerequisites or qualifications for leaders within the early church. He says they're to be the husband of one wife. So there already seems to be some sort of a movement away polygamy towards having one wife. So next question. 1 Corinthians 14:34 refers to women not speaking as the law says. Is this referring to a cultural law at that time, or Mosaic law, or are we still under this law? So let's take a look at this. 1 Corinthians 14. 1 Corinthians 14:34 says this. And as all the churches of the saints, the women should keep silent in the churches, for they are not permitted to speak, but should be in submission, as the Lord also says. I think this is something that actually I addressed in the message that's online, and so without having to go back into it and read the text and the quotes of different authors that I thought were pretty helpful, my recommendation at this point would be for you to go to check out this message online. It's called Gender Roles, I think part 2. Super creative, I know. I think on that I go through examples as to what was being referred to there. So I think specifically as far as the law says, I think is kind of what was being emphasized here. I don't really know, to be quite frank with you. There's a lot of things about some of these questions I don't really know, and where I don't know, I'll try to do research, and other areas where I'm not exactly familiar or certain, or there seems to be some fuzziness about it, I'll just tell you. So this is one of those areas where I would say there's a little bit of fuzziness in my mind as far as exactly what that is a reference to. So sorry about that. Question number 3. Love this topical series. Awesome. Thanks. Question. Can you shower us with scripture to address what is most relevant to us today? What does Jesus say? Paul say? My pen is ready. What I would just recommend is go back, listen to the messages carefully. I had lots of passages in there that I thought were adding some of the commentary for some of the things that we were talking about. So check out the messages, Gender Roles Part 1 and then Gender Roles Part 2. Hopefully that will give you some better context for some of this. So